Okay, we're back with part 4 of this shed build, which is to frame out these walls. So let's dive in and take a look and see how it came together.
And we'll get started with the trip to the store to pick up the lumber. A quick safety note here, red flag at the end of the lumber sticking out of the truck bed. And we'll go ahead and get this home. And this gorilla cart was great, not just because I could haul a large quantity at once, but it's also easier just wheeling this wood rather than carrying it by hand. So I wasn't going to be using this wood for a week, so I want to go ahead and put it in the covered patio. Just getting the second load unloaded here. Now, by way of layout of the shed, this is the front of the shed, where the door will be. That makes these two the sides, and this is the back of the shed. So I'm going to start by framing these two side walls, which are each 12 feet long. And I'm just marking where the studs will be on just one of those plates. Then I go ahead and clamp the other 3 plates to the one that has the marks, and then just transfer those marks from the one plate to the other plates using this speed square.
And this is where I realized I hadn't marked the location of the studs for the windows, so just checking the design and getting that done here. Then I'm just making sure the actual window will fit. And here I'm laying out the studs for the wall, and then I'll go ahead and crown these boards. I directed the crown to be toward the outside of the wall. And here I start nailing that bottom plate, often referred to as the sill plate, to the studs. And things started out pretty well.
So this is a good time to point out I'm not a professional contractor. I'm just a guy who knows how to use the basic tools.
And when it comes to using a pneumatic nail gun and an air compressor, I'm learning as I go.
So I borrowed this air compressor and this nail gun from a friend, and I'm still learning how it all works.
And this is where the mistakes begin.
So when I got the nail gun, the compressor, and the hose all connected, there was already enough pressure in the compressor tank to take care of the first 8 nails. But then I started on the 9th and 10th nail and noticed they didn't go in all the way. And that's when it had dawned on me that I hadn't yet turned on the compressor. So here I am, flipping the switch on, and after that, the nail gun was just fine. That is, of course, until this happened.
The compressor just stopped. And I thought I broke the compressor, or I thought it stopped working. Well, I realized that the compressor knows when pressure is high enough and it doesn't have to work. And so it automatically shuts off. And then if you just keep using the pressure, it'll start when it needs to. So I called the Lance and he schooled me on that.
Yep, total rookie move.
But after that was fixed, I was cooking with olive oil.
And here I'm attaching the top plate to the studs.
Okay, quick safety note here. Notice where my left hand is. It's at least 6 inches down the stud from the gun. And that's just in case one of those nails comes through the plate and misses the stud. I don't want it to hit my hand. I actually learned this from another YouTuber's video where a pro added that to the comments section. So if you're a pro or just someone with a lot of experience and you're making helpful comments in this DIY YouTube community, thank you. And if you see something I'm doing wrong, or maybe you know a better way of doing something, please drop that in the comments. Maybe another rookie or amateur can learn from it.
Okay, just gonna finish attaching this top plate to the studs, and first wall is finished. Now, I don't really need to show you the same thing for all 4 walls, except for where each wall is different. So you may remember my rookie move in the concrete video, where I installed these 2 concrete anchors into wet concrete, but they're the kind that's designed to be drilled into dry concrete later. So now I need to drill a hole into this bottom plate, or the sill plate, so that that wall, when installed, will fit right on top of that anchor. And just like with the first wall, I'm going to go ahead and nail this bottom plate into the studs, and then I realized I had forgotten to crown my boards. So get the boards crowned and finish getting this wall put together.
And here, quick safety note, just trying to make sure I lift with my legs, not my back. And with that, the framing of the second wall is finished.
Okay, with this back wall, just wanted to show again, just like the side wall, just drilling that one hole for the anchor. So this back wall was probably the most straightforward and simple of all 4 walls. No windows, no doors, just studs 16 inches apart. Okay, so this is where I'm working on the final wall, which is the front wall with the door.
Okay, so one more safety item with the nailer. So the nails are in the clips, connected with little pieces of plastic. And as you shoot a nail, that plastic gets released at a high speed. So safety goggles are certainly important, but also keeping your mouth shut is a good idea too. So I didn't take any plastic in the mouth, but came pretty close. And just to make a quick note here, I made a mistake on this fourth and final wall before even nailing the first two boards together, but I'll cover those details a little later in the video. Now, this was the end of that day and I was getting pretty tired, and fortunately, my neighbor Howie stopped by at just the right time to help me stack these walls. Okay then, just getting back after it here the following Saturday. It's time to get these walls up, get them square, connected, and get that top plate put in. So I'm going to start with this sidewall, just going to lay down this sill plate insulation. And here I'm attaching this temporary brace that will hold this wall up until all the other walls get attached. And here I'm sliding that wall sill plate on top of that one anchor. Then I'm going to attach the brace to the stake. And here's a better view of the back wall being put on top of that anchor after the sill plate insulation is put in. Now at this point, I was really happy I put those two anchors in, even though they're the wrong type. It helped with the installation of not only the insulation, but the wall itself. Now these walls will all eventually be connected by nails, but I'm just going to put a temporary screw in there to hold those two together. Now, when I went to put the third wall up, I realized I had these clamps. So I could use this clamp to connect these walls temporarily, which helped from a safety perspective. So after laying down the sill plate insulation, go ahead and put this wall on. Notice the clamp has been removed, and this would have been an ideal time right now to put that clamp back on, because that's when this happened. Yeah, bit of an oops moment there. And notice the clamp is back on. But once I got that wall on, I'll go ahead and add a temporary screw to hold that one up. Okay, just standing up this fourth and final wall, and by this time, use of the clamp had become a standard practice. And then just adding a temporary screw to both sides of this fourth and last wall, connect everything together. Okay, so quick take on this sill plate insulation. It's supposed to help with the gap between the concrete and the sill plate. I'm not sure how important it is for a shed. I thought it was kind of cool. I'm not sure it was worth it. The extra effort to make sure the insulation was actually in the right place, the wind blowing and bumping it with the heavy wall. These walls are heavy and I'm getting old and I'm not that strong. So it was just kind of a pain. I think maybe I could have glued it down first, but that just seemed like overkill. I feel like it was already overkill in the first place. So if any of you have experience with this sill plate insulation, home building, shed building, thoughts on whether it's needed for a shed, feel free to drop that in the comments. So before adding this second top plate, just going to check for squareness here. We're square. That is beautiful. Okay, so checking for squareness when working alone presented a challenge. So what I used was this quick clip to clip the start of the measuring tape to the one corner and then be able to stretch it to the other corner. Problem with that is the first time I did it, it was angled off, not a direct path to the other corner. So I had to go back and straighten out the angle. And so worked out, we're square. Time to get that second top plate on and tighten things up. Actually, it's time to call my mom. It's 9:30 on Saturday morning. This is our time to talk. So that's the next step. Okay, so let's dive into the error on the framing of this fourth wall, the one with the door. So take a look at this shot. This is when Howie and I were stacking the walls after I'd finished framing for the day. Notice the size of the door. It's actually a really good size for a shed door. Well, I had mistakenly designed it to be more narrow than that, but I didn't have time to frame out a door that day. And then one night during the week, I went out and added just the 2 studs that would frame out the door. So here's the picture before, and here it is after I added the 2 additional studs. So there are at least 2 mistakes with this door. First, I designed this wall to be 10 feet long, which is the width of the concrete slab. However, this wall doesn't go all the way to the edge of the concrete slab because the side walls are there. Now when I actually built the wall, I did measure and I built it to the right size to account for the side walls. However, what that meant was that my door was 7 inches more narrow than I had planned. The second mistake was failing to follow the rule, measure twice, cut it once. If I had to pull out my measuring tape at night when I put those 2 additional studs in, I would have avoided a lot of extra work. So here I am, framing on a door of the wrong size, not yet having discovered my error. And so here's the header. We got a piece of OSB sandwiched by 2 2x8s. So I guess this was the 3rd opportunity to catch my error. I think I just got excited about framing out this door, but I didn't compare the measurements of the actual cuts I was making to the intended measurements on my design. Okay, so let's get back to getting this second top plate on and getting these walls tied together. And a quick safety note here, when ascending and descending a ladder, my goal is to maintain 3 points of contact at all time. My temptation is to carry this board up the ladder with me. However, this board was long enough so that I could just lean it up against the framed building and grab it at the top. And so the key here is that this second top plate for the front wall overlaps the first top plate for the side wall, thus tying them together nicely. And here, just finishing the nailing of that second top plate on that front wall. And then just the same thing on that back wall. And because the second top plate for each side wall doesn't go from end to end, here I'm just cutting those to length. And a quick safety note here, when using the circle saw, just making sure to use both eye protection and ear protection. And here, just attaching the second top plate for each of the side walls. And then nailing together the walls at each of the 4 corners, just showing the 1 corner here. Okay, so another safety item to think about is hydration. So today's choice of hydration is water and green tea. It's a beautiful day here in North Texas. It's mid-April. Say the temperatures are in the low 70s. Gotta stay hydrated. Okay, just showing the drilling for one of these anchors. And then I'm just gonna blow out the dust. And I used a wood block to pound the anchor down so I wouldn't damage the thread on the anchor. I later realized that I could put the washers and the nut on first and then hit it directly with the hammer, and then it didn't matter if I damaged the thread because the nut was already on. Okay, so those anchors went in pretty well. This Makita hammer drill with a Milwaukee masonry bit worked really well. That bit went through the concrete like butter. Okay, so I'm using these 1/2 inch by 4 1/4 inch Cobra para-wedge concrete anchors. Now, the anchor itself comes with that round washer and the nut. So I separately bought these Simpson Strong Tie 2 1/2 inch square bearing plates with a 5/8 inch bolt diameter. Now, these weren't in stock at my local Home Depot, but they did deliver them to me for free when I ordered them through their website. So each side wall got 4 anchors, the back wall got 3 anchors. Now this front wall originally only had 2 anchors, but I went back later and added 2 more. Very timely visit from my son-in-law from Kansas City, who happens to be a structural engineer. And he let me know code required at least 1 anchor on each wall within 1 foot of the corner. I don't think I have the wording 100% correct, but the idea is put another anchor in the corner. Okay, and here I'm just adding some diagonal support to each of the 3 walls that don't have a door. And the next step is to frame out the window on each of the side walls. And next is the best part of my day, a visit from my lovely wife Lisa. And yes, I slowed this part down intentionally, but the framing is blocking us, so this is still a PG video. So I just want to point out one thing with these windows. Notice the location of this window is towards the back of the shed, whereas the location of the window on the other wall is towards the front of the shed. The idea there is that when these windows are open, wind coming through would cool off as much of the shed as possible. And here, just showing the installation of the correct door framing. Notice I am not using a header, rather I'm using these cripple studs. According to my son-in-law, code does not require a header for a non-load bearing wall. So I'm just going to install these jack studs here and the door framing will be finished. Okay, I'd like to wrap up this video with a thank you to my neighbor Howie for helping me with the heavy lifting. And thanks to my son-in-law Austin and my buddies Kevin, James, Scott, and Lance for either loaning me tools or helping me think through the design. And a special thanks to my wife Lisa for helping me edit this video. And thank you for watching. Until next time.